So you're probably all experienced in life in a situation where you talk to another person, that the other person is perceiving the same situation in a different way. Sometimes you might be confused. How is it possible that the other person sees the same situation in such a different way? In this lecture right now, we're going to look into why is that a very common phenomena, because we need to understand that. We call that the inner and the outer reality. We need to understand that also if we can use it to our advantage, we're going to create much better relationships. So let's look into the slide here. You have a reality. We can call it more the objective reality. From my point of view, when I'm looking at it, in this case, it's a forest. I see the sun shining through the forest. Another person also looking at the forest, he may see something differently. He may see there's a darkness inside the forest. If you both are looking at the car, my perception and association might be pollution. This is not good for society to have so many cars. Another person is looking at the same car, for example a Volvo, and thinking about freedom. I can take the car, leaving the society, the towns, and go out into the wilderness. And also when you're in a relationship, you have any situation that you may experience, that was a difficult situation, we were arguing and we didn't really feel good. But to your confusion, the other person might perceive it, this was the way to get to know each other, to understand each other deeper. It was a little bit tough, but it created more love between us. So we call this phenomena the inner and the outer filter, because if we are putting a filter in front of our eyes. It's like sunglasses. So when I see reality, I look it through my red lenses, and the other person is looking through their blue lenses. So where do they come from, these lenses? Well, we have all things with us from life. Values, cultural background, religion, politics, what your parents told you. These are all creating a filter which you're looking at reality. For example, if fairness, if that's a strong value for you and somebody else in the team is not picking up their part of the workload, you may get really upset because you think that fairness is a very important value for you. But you may not perceive that the other person also has values in this situation because you're only looking at through your lenses.
So what's the point with filters in relation to feedback?
So that's a very good point, isn't it? So when you are giving feedback to a person, of course you're giving it feedback out from your lenses, from your filter, what is important for you. You see the person or the person's, say, performance through your eyes. And it's not difficult to understand that the other person may see the same situation through another reality. So when we give feedback, we need to be aware that the other person is having another reality. And you need to also be curious about the other person's reality, so you can create a relationship. Otherwise you cannot maybe move forward together and find alternatives. So this is important both when you're giving feedback and also when you receive feedback. To understand we have different realities. You're trying to meet in the middle. You're trying to find a third way forward. Because if you don't acknowledge, for example, if I gave you feedback and I don't acknowledge your reality, well, what will happen? You will not feel seen in your reality. You may even start to resist me when I give you feedback. So I cannot really have the feedback landing in you. And what doesn't work in that case is start to arguing even more about your point of view, because you create even more polarity then.
So what do I need to do then when it comes to filters?
So the first point is try to understand what we talk about here. We have different realities, we have sunglasses, we have different filters. So when you give feedback and receive feedback, it's going to come through your filters. So you're going to need to be more humble. We cannot say that our reality is more correct than the other ones. We need to be humble and also curious. Because if you're curious, you may do something we call cross the bridge. So let's look at the slide here. We call that to cross the bridge. So as long as you're staying on this side of the river, you think you're a little bit of an expert on the other person. You're looking at the person's performance, behavior. You may want to change something. And the other person is maybe standing there on the other side of the river. So if you should be really effectful, you need to cross the bridge. And that requires humbleness, which means that you may not be correct in your perceptions. You need to be humble about that. And have empathy, which means that I am curious. I want to stand in your world and understand your world. So if you can cross the bridge and be interested in the other point of view, the rest will follow. And who knows, you may even learn new things from the other person. So as a summary, in and out of reality is something that happens when we're giving and receiving feedback. We need to be aware about. And the way forward is to cross the bridge and ask people, tell me more. And to do that with an open mind. So let's practice this. Be doing things with feedback with an open mind and genuinely interested.
Tell me more. Tell me more.